You're listening to the Next Level Sports Podcast, episode number 7, with Mike Abramson from the Hartford Yard Goats, where today we're going to talk a little bit about branding in minor league baseball. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Next Level Sports Podcast. Take your game to the next level today by learning mental skills from top-level coaches and professionals.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My guest today is Mike Abramson. He is the general manager of the Hartford Yard Goats, the AA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies. And Mike has spent almost 15 years in baseball and more than 20 working in the field of marketing and communications. As general manager, Mike oversees the day-to-day operations of Hartford Yard Goats baseball, including sales, marketing, operations, community service, staffing, and much more. Prior to joining the Yard Goats, Mike spent 6 seasons with the Pawtucket Red Sox, the AAA affiliate of the Boston Red Sox. In today's episode, Mike's going to talk about branding and also give some tips for kids in high school or college who are just about to transition from school out into the real world. So here's my interview with Mike Abramson of the Hartford Yard Goats.
Sure. So it's pretty similar to what I would say to any high school student, and that is sort of focusing on doing well in school, putting yourself in a position to exceed at the next level and succeed at the next level is really the most important thing, because I did not do that. I did not do well in high school. I went to college. I didn't finish. I had to go back and do that years later when I was 30. And it's a lot easier to be a poor college kid when you're, 19 than when you're 30.
Yeah. And what led you down the path of getting into baseball?
Well, I like to say that baseball found me. I was very interested in radio. I worked in radio for a number of years, and that led me to work for a sports radio station. I was working in sales for that station, specifically selling commercials that ran during Red Sox games on radio. And that was really kind of the transition. From there, I got more interested in the work of baseball. I had been a very big baseball fan. I lived up in Brookline, right outside of Boston for a number of years. Went to a lot of Red Sox games. But through some of the people I met when I was working at WEEI, which was the radio station, I met some folks who worked for the Pawtucket Red Sox, which was the Red Sox AAA team. They had a job open up there, and I had the opportunity to go work there. That was interesting to me at the time, because working in radio, selling commercials in Red Sox games that ran on the radio felt like it was a step or a degree removed from the actual product itself. So I really liked the idea of going and working in the actual thing and selling the actual thing. What I didn't know at the time, and I really couldn't have known, was that the work of being in sports is very different than everything else, because it's so multidimensional. I probably on an average day do about 25 completely separate things. And once you get used to that, it would be very hard to walk it back and really focus on one or two things every day. The downside is it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of work, but I find that the people that stay working in baseball for a long time are built like me, and that they're more interested in the variety than the ability to really exceed at one single thing. We all are okay to settle for good across many things as opposed to doing one thing great.
Yeah. And, for somebody that's looking to perhaps have a career in, say, minor league or major league baseball, what do you think is the best route for somebody to get that entry level?
Well, it's very important to know that there are two very separate paths in working in sports. The player development path, which ultimately leads to being, say, the general manager of a Major League Baseball team or an NFL football team, is a player development path. That's a path where you are responsible for scouting players, assessing players, and ultimately fielding a team that can win a championship. The vast majority of jobs in sports are located on the business side, which is the sales, sponsorship, promotion, operations. It's more venue oriented than sport oriented. So the advice for getting into the player development side is really tricky. That is a very, very, very narrow path. It's populated with a lot of people that know a lot of people. But the way to get there right now really is through statistics is a big piece. Video is another big piece. Young folks who would like to be the general manager of a Major League Baseball team, for instance, their best chance for a foot in the door right now is probably being an entry-level video person for a Major League organization. The business side is different. You know, you have so many opportunities to go to work in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in, you know, the college level for the NFL, minor league baseball for Major League Baseball. The NBA has the G League, the NHL has the AHL. And then in addition to that, you have so many college jobs, you have so many independent leagues. So those types of jobs don't require the advice or the direction. It's just a matter of going out there, applying for jobs, getting experience. The player development side's the tricky side to get into.
Yeah. And when I remember hearing that you were in Pawtucket, but you kind of liked the idea of starting something brand new that nobody ever done before, which led you into the Hartford Yard Goats. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have and always have had a very entrepreneurial spirit. You know, I dig people that start businesses, that start podcasts. You know, I just admire the ability to think of something and then build it from the ground up. I have never really had something that I wanted to build for the ground up that I could. So when I had the opportunity to come and be here and be part of building a new ballpark, moving a team, but really in essence building a completely new team, a new name, a new concept, a new marketing approach, that was just really attractive to me. You know, when I was in Pawtucket, most of the folks there had been there through the 1999 season when they completely renovated McCoy Stadium, which for all intent and purposes really was a new build. I mean, it was a totally different ballpark than what they started with. And while I'm sure that was a very difficult process, they only remembered the good stuff. So you always heard the stories, and they sounded so much fun and so crazy, and everybody had this bond. The really neat thing is now that we are 3 years removed from our own process, we have a lot of people here who went through opening the ballpark, who went through the incredibly tough times of doing that, but now we all only really remember the good times, and when we speak of the bad times, we speak of them fondly. So I'm very happy to say that everything I hoped I would get out of this, I got 3 to 5-fold easily. I mean, it's been a much bigger, much broader, much fuller experience than I could have ever hoped.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that I wanted to explore a little bit. When you talk about the general manager at like the major league level, where they're kind of seeing player development over the entire organization, how is the role of a general manager different in minor league baseball versus major league baseball?
Sure. So in minor league baseball, it's really a business oversight role. You know, it would be akin in major league baseball to being, say, a chief operating officer. The person that is responsible for getting people to come out to the games, to buy merchandise, to buy concessions. It's fan satisfaction. It's employee satisfaction. So really it is more akin to running the business side of a business. In minor league baseball, the general manager has no control, no oversight of what happens on the field. That filters down from the major league level through the minor league development coordinator, director of player development, So on any given day, I don't decide who pitches. I don't decide who hits. And really, at the end of the day, anything could be happening on the field aside from baseball. It could be a football game. It could be a circus. It doesn't actually change my job in any way. And that's important to know. I mean, most people don't know that because they're not deep enough into the sport. They just see the title. The natural assumption is that it transfers between the leagues, but it really is a business role. It's a marketing role.
Yeah, and I'm glad you ended on marketing role there, because I think marketing is one of the coolest aspects of what the Yard Goats do. You know, it's marketing unlike I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm sure coming from the Pawtucket Red Sox, there's kind of a Red Sox way to do things, but starting essentially a new brand gave you a lot of freedom in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really did. I'll tell you this story because it's a really interesting one. So starting back in Pawtucket, everything that they did there, that we did there, was very traditional. The game experience, the marketing, the branding were all very much modeled after the Boston Red Sox. So one of the things that was interesting into the last couple of years, Pawtucket did not even have between innings promotions, which is a staple in minor league baseball. It really was modeled after the Red Sox experience. So when I came down here and I was working for a couple of years for the New Britain Rockcats before we moved and ultimately became the Yard Goats, I had to get used to the minor league promotional element of minor league baseball. It wasn't easy to get used to it. But that being said, when we moved, that afforded us the opportunity to say, who do we want to be? What kind of team do we want to be? How do we want to market? How do we want to do things as big as we can, as well as we can? And a funny thing happened along the way. When we first released our brand, the Yard Goats brand, the Yard Goats logo, we started up our social media platforms. And I had to run those platforms because we still were executing a final season of New Britain Rockcats baseball. So most teams that move have the benefit of just being able to change the name on their social media, keep their followers, etc. But we couldn't do that because we had a year crossover. So we launched our brands with me doing the social media. Didn't use any social media myself, had no experience with it. And I'm fine to say it was very lame. But somebody concurrently started a social media Twitter for the Yard Goats, purported to be the Yard Goats, though they weren't, and did it really, really well. Very funny, very edgy stuff. Long story short, took a couple of weeks, but they got shut down, and you know, we were free and clear to be the only Yard Goats Twitter. But I really was able to adapt the voice that they were using, understand why what they were doing was so appealing. So, you know, on a given day, I would tweet out, you know, get your season tickets now, you know, opening day is only a year away. And they would tweet out, like, let's give every single player a taco right before the start of the game and, like, chips when the game ends, which is nonsensical. It has nothing to do with baseball. But people liked that a lot more. So I was able to appreciate that, benefit from it, sort of merged it in with the voice that we had. And then it kind of became its own thing because our social media was the only branding we had. Didn't have a team, didn't have a ballpark. We just had social media. That's it. I was able, you know, kind of like a sitcom that gets popular over time. The finer points get tweaked and the lesser points go away. And really over a period of time was able to kind of hone that, bring my own very dry sense of humor to it. And ultimately the social media just became something that was very little about baseball and more about being one of many friends in a room talking about funny things. So once we finally had a team, once we finally had a ballpark, we had a very clear brand identity. You know, it filled with hyperbole, filled with, you know, boastfulness that, while not completely true, I thought sort of gave us a strength, you know, at least a perception of strength. And it really went with that logo, which was sort of tough. It's chewing up the bat. It's got the horns. And the whole thing came together. So like anything that's successful, it was a little bit intent. There was a lot of luck. There was a little bit of magic. But, you know, but for those people that created that fake Twitter, things could have gone very differently.
Is there a favorite promotion that you guys have done for you?
Yeah, I mean, I like our Whalers Alumni Weekend we do every year because I think that is part minor league baseball and part playing the role of the steward of the city that we're in. You know, because we're in a city without a major league team, we really kind of get to be that team. You know, we get to be the biggest thing going right now. We're still new. It's still the cool place to be. So to bring in the history of the Whalers and get 15 of those guys back here to sign autographs, put them on the field and you know, Whalers style baseball jerseys and have specialty food and drinks themed around the Whalers, play Brass Bonanza a bunch of times. I think it is a really nice merging of what minor league baseball is and also what a team can mean to a city.
Yeah. And, you know, I think you guys are really entrenched in the city too, in all aspects, from all the different styles of communities around. You know, talk a little bit about how you guys decide to bring everybody as opposed to like going after just one demographic.
Sure. Well, again, you know, when you do something well and it's received well and you're successful, it gives you a lot of confidence. So when we were opening up, like I said, with the marketing, it gave us the opportunity to decide who we wanted to be. So minor league baseball does really well with community stuff. You know, all the minor league baseball teams go out in their community. They give away tickets for events. They have, you know, reading programs in schools, but we just talked about how we could be much bigger and how we could go deeper than that. And, you know, we decided to put a community center at the ballpark out of which to run our community programs. So not only would there be a space for that, but that is a physical commitment to the cause. Anybody driving by the ballpark knows the community is a big part of what we do. Starting a young ambassador program at the ballpark where kids come out 2 days a week in the off season for 3 hours a day. They learn about money management, personal branding. They visit colleges. That is a real commitment. That's not giving out 4 tickets for reading a book during the summer. That's a lot of work. It costs a lot of money, but ultimately it results in, you know, 25 and 50 kids going to visit college who probably wouldn't otherwise. You know, we have our dance team out on the field. We've got a culinary program where high school kids come in, cook in the executive kitchen. Every week we have a different chef who owns and operates a Hartford restaurant come in and teach the kids to cook. That it's just a multi-pronged approach. I mean, that program right there, by bringing the chef in here, bringing the kids who are from the city, you're bringing all these people together who would never come together otherwise, and you're doing it in your ballpark. And I think the nice thing about the community aspect of what we do is we really don't promote that at all. We don't market it. There's a benefit to us. We always knew there would be, and of course it's okay that there is. But for us, the real focus is on the benefit for the kids, and the nice added benefit is that people really have taken a big interest in it. But my mantra, our mantra from the very beginning was that it was everyone's ballpark. That's why our, you know, diversity initiatives are so important. Our cultural nights, our pride nights. That's why we're trying to do those things better than everybody else. And, you know, to bring this full circle, when I was in Pawtucket and probably most other minor league baseball teams, the point was to not make a political statement at any point ever, lest you offend a single person. And I am very proud of the fact that we are so out front with the pride initiatives, with our cultural nights, just standing up for what we believe in, who we believe in, and it all falls under the heading of the fact that it is everyone's ballpark, right down to the fact that we banned peanuts this year, because anybody can come to a game and choose to not eat peanuts. There were hundreds of people who could not come to a game because they could not be exposed to peanuts, and now they can. And we take the knocks for it, and we don't mind. And again, it's kind of fun to have this platform to get to make these statements that you used to not be able to make.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for kids to hear that message at an early age, to find something that you believe in and follow that through and know that your belief is true. You know, that's your belief. You have every right to feel that way.
Well, it's true. And, you know, speaking specifically about high school kids, through my work here, I am very fortunate that I had the chance to go and talk at a lot of high schools. I talk at a lot of colleges. You went to high school. I went to high school. I always say the same thing, and it's true. You are in the middle of doing the hardest thing you will ever do in your entire life, and that is be a high school student, because everybody is raw with emotion. They're raw with fear of judgment. It would be so helpful to have known how much more important it was to be your own person and how well that would serve you on the other side. Because the day you get in line for graduation, all of the layers, all of the cliques, all of the this, all of the that peels away, and you're just people out in the real world. And nobody cares about any of that stuff you cared so passionately about for 4 to 6 years. And, you know, I was one of those people. I cared what people think. I was terrified of being judged. But now, knowing everything I know and being in this position, again, with a little bit of a platform, with a little bit of success, I feel most proud about forging our own way and sort of forging our own path.
When I walk around the ballpark, there's so many unique places. It feels like anywhere you go throughout the ballpark, you could almost be in a completely different ballpark. As you walk around or look around the stadium, what's kind of like your favorite area?
That's tough. That's like asking which one of your kids is your favorite. You know, there's things you like more about them than other people, and there's things you wish were different, you know. I don't have one. I mean, I love our dugout suites down on the lower level near the dugouts, because it's so cool for people to be able to sit there literally in the dugout and, you know, enjoy the game. I love our seats up high out in center field where the Budweiser Sky Bar is, because it's like a nightclub out there on game nights filled with young people. They're all hanging around. Nobody's watching the game. They're just hanging out with friends, seeing who's there. But just my favorite overall thing about the ballpark is that because it's below grade, when you drive by it on the street, you never really fully get a sense of how big it is and how impressive it is until you're down inside, particularly when you're down on the field and you're looking up at everything. I just, you know, not unlike our marketing, it was well designed, but there's a lot of magic in it. The way that people feel when they come in this ballpark, the way that they exhale, they seem relaxed, is very different than anywhere else I've ever been. You know, I love when people tell me that they come with their family, they come with their kids, everybody's relaxed, they have a great time, and that it's easy, because I have young kids and nothing is easy with young kids ever. But there is something about this place, and it's little things you would never notice. The seats are wider than at your average stadium. The aisles are a little bit wider. If somebody needs to walk by you to get to their seat, you don't have to stand up. They can get by you. Those are very little things, but it's the tiny stuff of feeling claustrophobic, of feeling constricted, that can make you feel anxious, make you feel like you're not having a good time. Here, you can't go 15 feet without being able to buy some kind of food or drink if you wanted to. So it's an easy place to be, and I just love every view. Everywhere you go, especially at night when the city's lit up over right field, I just spend every game walking around with my camera and taking pictures. I just love it.
Cool. And when you talked about marketing, one of the coolest things is when you go through the team store, there's such a variety, not just of items, but unique logos that are, you know, something about the city, you know. How did you guys come up with something like that, as opposed to just a traditional, here's your home and away jersey type of thing?
Yeah, and it's kudos to people other than me, because we have our merchandise manager, AJ Massaro. Josh Montanari, who's one of our assistant GMs, oversees that. We had a couple of great consultants who helped us with it. A gentleman who's worked with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, the Reading Fightin' Phils, the Richmond Flying Squirrels, people who have done this really well. And it really is amazing. I mean, at this point, we have so many different logos. We have so many different styles of logos, so many different colors. Even our Los Chivos brand, which we just released last year, which is our Spanish or Latino alternate identity, we now have several different logos, several different hats, several different shirts of that. So yeah, it's really like a paint bucket just threw up in the stores. It's amazing the variety of things, amazing the variety of slogans on all of the shirts, and I really think there is something for everybody. You know, we're not the kind of place that needs to have 10,000 of one shirt. You know, no, everybody wants a little something different. I think the fact that one of the things that attracted people to us first was the uniqueness of the name, the uniqueness of the logo. They felt a sense of ownership over that. And that directly correlates to the fact that everybody wants something that's a little bit different than what the other person has. Nobody wants to be walking around the city with the exact same hat, the exact same shirt. They want people to know what it is, but they like the fact that it's a little bit different. Everybody gets to keep a little bit of that unique identity along with it.
Yeah. And also, you guys also kind of in some way took the colors of the Whalers across town, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first things that we did really right. You know, everybody accepted it immediately as being the homage that it was intended to be. Nobody took it to be a silly theft of someone else's colors or jumping onto somebody else's coattails. And I was really happy about that because I thought it was going to go both ways. But right off the bat, everybody was very appreciative of the adaptation of the colors, keeping those colors alive. And now I'm really proud to say, you see with the Hartford Athletic, which is a USL soccer team coming into Hartford, they've adopted those colors. So I'm proud to say that we revived it, and now there is a play for blue and green being the city's colors, and that all of the sports teams will be wearing those colors.
Nice. What would you tell kids that have these ideas that are very entrepreneurial, that like they have an idea or a motivation? What would be the advice to kind of make sure they follow that path?
Well, that's tricky. It's trickier when you are in your teens than when you're an adult. You know, when you're an adult, the thing you battle is distraction from your life, having to find money, having to make money to pay for things. And when you're a young person, you have the distraction of school, your athletics, but you also don't have the same resources you might have otherwise. I think the answer would be exactly the same as, you know, somebody who is a very talented pitcher or batter. How do they go on to the next level? If you have something you're good at, if you have a great idea, if you're a good athlete, the biggest thing that is standing in your way as a teenager is understanding that it's the only shot you're ever going to get to take that one particular thing as far as you can take it. That certainly equates to athletics more than entrepreneurial, you know, pursuits, because entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. They're going to be inventing things their entire life. But if you are an athlete and you are a gifted basketball player, if you're a gifted baseball player, softball player, and somebody thinks you have the wherewithal to go to college, if only you work a little bit harder, you would just love for them to know, put the distractions away. You have your whole life to have fun. You will never have anybody offer you money to go to college again in your life. Spend the next year working out, working on your craft, and take advantage of that opportunity. But that's the biggest thing that stands in the way. It's just distraction. It's the lack of resources. But the people you see break through, particularly on the entrepreneurial side, you know, if you look at someone like name is escaping me, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. If you look at somebody like him and you hear him talk, I mean, he was hustling from the time he was 12 years old. You know, the people that are going to break through are going to break through. It's just knowing that it's okay to go all in on that idea, that it is worth the time and effort.
I know that you guys do a lot of community programs here. What are some of the benefits of an inner city kid that chooses to join into one of these community programs that you guys offer?
It's a good question. I think there are two great benefits. There's many benefits, two of the best. One is you get to meet people you would not otherwise meet. As a high school kid in Hartford, you're probably not going to meet the CEO of Travelers. You know, you're probably not going to be folks who are running other sports teams. You're not going to meet the general manager and the on-air anchors at NBC Connecticut. But when you see those people again, they remember you, you remember them. You don't know if and when that's ever going to become a benefit, but it very well may. I'd like to also think that coming here to the ballpark, being in a room with, 25 other exceptional kids, getting to go on these college visits, meeting these people, I'd like to think that it gives them confidence, because after a while, once they all get to know each other, just knowing that you're there and everybody there thinks it's worth their time to teach you these things, to have you meet these people, to take you on these trips. I'd like to think that that really builds somebody's confidence, because they know I wouldn't be here if I weren't worth all of this. It builds that sense of worth, and also it just gives them the skills. Nobody taught me money when I was in high school. I wish somebody taught me money before I went and signed all the stuff I signed for college, but they learn about things like whether they should be keeping their money in a bank account, if they wanted to invest a little bit of money, how they would do that, what a budget looks like. I didn't know what a budget was until I was 30 years old and got married. My wife had a budget. Now I budget relentlessly. And one of my favorite things to do when we have a young person who works here who leaves to go do something else, work for another team, I always give them a budget. I show them how to use it, because it's that important, and just having people show you those things and talk to you about personal branding. What does your social media mean? How does it reflect on you? Your social media is out there saying, what do you want it to say about you? You can actually control your own message and teaching people how to do that. So I think it's the confidence builder. It's introducing them to people, because, as the old saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then just the skills they acquire as well.
Awesome. And if people want to follow you or follow the Yard Goats, how would they do that?
Sure. So for me personally, I'm on Twitter. My handle is YardGoatsGM. I am on LinkedIn. Don't know what that handle is, but you can look me up. I'm Mike Abramson. YardGoatsBaseball.com is our website. We're on all the social medias. We're verified on all of them, so we're pretty easy to find. And of course, we're at the ballpark here playing home games April through August.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
All right, that was my sit-down with Mike Abramson from the Hartford Yard Goats, and we recorded that podcast actually at Dunkin' Donuts Park in Hartford, Connecticut. And interestingly enough, we talk about how wonderful the ballpark is. Dunkin' Donuts Park has been named the best AA park for the second year straight by Ballpark Digest. And it's actually the first minor league organization to win that award 2 years in a row. The only other park has been PNC Park by the Pittsburgh Pirates, which won it in back-to-back seasons in 2015 and 2016. And on June 22nd, the 1 millionth fan will actually be passing through the gates at Dunkin' Donuts Park in just the opening half of the third season. So let that sink in. In less than 3 full seasons, a minor league franchise has drawn 1 million fans. And a lot of it does have to do with the time, the effort that they put into the branding, the way that they reach out and touch people in the communities from all backgrounds. The way they have their pride nights, the way they just made that big stand by getting rid of peanuts, which is very controversial. Even the name Yard Goats was controversial. If you hop on to, any of the YouTubes, and you can see that they just got obliterated for this name when it first came out. But it's really turned into the pride of the city, where you can walk around and you see dozens and dozens and dozens of different Yard Goat hats and shirts and jackets, and it's just something that everybody in the community has really taken a grasp to. So, and I think also it was interesting to hear some of the differences between a major league general manager and a minor league general manager. I don't think a lot of people knew about that difference, where it's more of a chief operating officer rather than a decision maker for the pitchers, for the batters, for the lineups. It was just such an interesting conversation, and it gives you a little bit of knowledge if you wanted to go into something like minor league baseball, what are the options? You can get into the sales and marketing side. You can get into the player development side. So just a fun conversation from a really great guy and an awesome ballpark. If you're one of those people that likes to travel over and check out different ballparks, definitely swing by Hartford. Check out Dunkin' Donuts Park. Tons of great promotions, great seats all over, interesting views, and just an all-around great time. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Next Level Sports Podcast. We'll see you next time. Let's kick it over to the Zambonis.